right, we're back with our 4 Seasons recap, commentary of a commentary, showing off some more action in the rounds. This time around, we're going to be seeing a Metalcraft deck, specifically the Izzet version. It is not the Affinity version. It is kind of almost reminiscent of like the Underworld Breach style of doing Emery stuff and kind of utilizing a bunch of stuff. The other deck that we're going to be seeing is a Jeskai Blink, one of the most popular, powerful decks in Modern. It's kind of the go-to Blink deck in Modern. So we're going to be showing off both these decks here. This is from round 3. There are still plenty of other games from the tournament. There was, of course, the, Living End versus Storm deck. That was a bit of a controversial deck that was showcased on the channel, or at least on the stream and the tournament. Of course, there's been a lot of discussion since then about it, but we'll go into and show you guys at least this round and what things are going on for this one. So we'll do a little bit of behind the scenes commentary and also unmuting and muting it. So let's jump into it, shall we? How this works out here in this match as we're getting into round number 3 here and see. I mean, both decks, like you mentioned, have this kind of early game plan that they can try to be able to set themselves up for here. It looks like a mulligan down for our Jeskai Blink player, and were they able to be able to... Ooh, so they are on the draw here, but we do see starting off Island Bobble and confirming which land it is, because it is that Innistrad black and white land, so it's hard to tell sometimes, but there is that turn 1 Emery there. Oof, and actually some pretty good tools that we can be able to pick up for later on. Good turn there. 1.
Yep, immediately having access to Mox Amber and Cory Steelcutter, as well as Emery's best friend, which is Mishra's Bubble, just being able to generate that extra card advantage if you need to. And not cracking Bubble mostly signifies to me that Daniel is really valuing having that extra artifact in play, be it as a way to cast Metallic Rebuke or just to contribute to the Metalcraft.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I try to contribute to the Metalcraft at this moment. All right, so this is like, the power of the Izzet Metalcraft deck is, if you were watching during the Underworld Breach lines and before that deck was banned, because it was banned basically a year ago, as we are now. Like, it was banned in March of 2025 because of just sort of loops and things you could do, especially with being able to utilize Cory Steelcutter to help out and kind of close out the game. It became like a Jeskai Ascendancy style of deck. There's been some variations and rising up and flowing of a Jeskai Ascendancy style. I've heard rumblings that there is a new uncommon, or maybe it's a common, blue artifact from the TMNT set that has basically boosted the set. This, was the release date of the set is when this tournament was taking place, so there wasn't as many cards that were featured from the TMNT, but there is going to be a Izzet Affinity deck that we're going to see. And Riddler, that was the other cool thing about this list, is being able to like dump my hand and be able to utilize our Riddler here. And we were hellbent and we're able to draw 2 cards off there to kind of reset and go, hey, now here's all this scary stuff that we've got here. Of course, that will get warped out and come back potentially later, but now we can start popping the bobble, because getting a little bit more resources here will be a little bit more beneficial over, not at this point in time. And, you're staring down a Ragavan. That's not as scary as kind of the way that you set up your turn there. But yeah, we remove the dice, we're reset there. That prowess trigger is now gone. But I love the just, all right, you get ready to take your turn. I'm going to get my tokens ready because I'm going to need a lot of them.
Exactly. And I don't know whether they are like searching. It's hard for me to read whether... I think it's an appropriate token already. I think that's the Monk token, because for a second I thought it was like a placeholder, while Daniel is looking for an appropriate one. But yeah, I do think that this like very high up feet Bruce Lee style looks like a Monk to me.
Yeah. Definitely. And then so that we were looking also for that warp representation token so we
Oh
can
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of keep track of why the Riddler is over where he is. So lets us be able to see that. But really just like land pass for Marco here is not really like, feeling as good. But, talk me through like as a Jeskai player, in that situation where you're kind of basically having to play a reactionary game now.
So
Oh my gosh, zero clutter.
yeah. So Marco's hand definitely has both Philia um and
Oh,
I think the
no
no
more
more lies
lies.
was the draw for turn, but both Philia and Riddler. So if Marco chose to, they could have just gone for Philia, then blink Riddler to establish some board pressure. But I do think that those two steel cutters would have gotten a bit out of hand. Mm, so yeah, countering them makes a lot of sense. And also with Emery active on the board, the exile clause on No More Lies is just such a huge deal.
Such a huge, yeah, because you want to be able to recast those cards from your graveyard here with Emery, but saying nope, that is now off the table. You cannot have two Corey Steel Cutters going. So Emery's going to go in and try to get us a little bit more mana there with the next Mox, but still bringing the beats across now with these Monk tokens and trying to kind of actually start putting that pressure now on Marco here. So
Yeah, the Metalcraft deck is a lot of fun because you get to do these super powerful things. You're able to, utilize like the Moxes and float them, generate some mana, bounce them to your hand with repeals, basically recast them for free to keep going. And you sort of like almost are storming without like a storm payoff, but it is kind of a payoff when it comes to your generating monk tokens and doing these prowess triggers and just sort of like building up this go wide army. So very cool. Like I like the idea of having a Jeskai's Ascendancy personally in like a one of even, but I know it's hard when you're like everybody is all about their like 60 card efficiency speed. But I'm all about the 61 card decks. You all know that when you're seeing me on camera at least, or seeing my Moxfield links for decks there. But yeah, this is like a very tough spot for a Jeskai Blink player for sure. And it was interesting to see like the navigation and the lines that these players were trying to make in this matchup here.
to not casting it there, but okay, pitching, doing the solitude stuff. Gonna pitch the Felia here.
And now we see the synergy between pitch spells and Riddler, because now Marco can play Riddler and draw two cards instead of one.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost of extra card used to evoke Solitude is getting paid back in some way with the Riddler.
All right, there's the Riddler deployment. So both players utilizing the Riddler's effect to draw two cards here. So we'll see how Marco can kind of follow it up with his next setup here. I mean, having three cards now, a little bit more to kind of work with, definitely helped getting rid of the Emery that turn, which could be a big problem later on. And I mean, it already was a bit of a problem, but ooh, bouncing the Ragavan. Let's just draw another card here. Clearing the path to, not have to deal with that for a little bit. Basically, really kind of slow things down. Urza Saga ticking up to 2. Now we're looking for other spells. We want to be able to get that Corey Steel Cutter to trigger another time this turn, get another monk, and continue this kind of go wide mentality. We also have that kind of ability to be able to make a construct here, since our artifact count is okay for the most part. We have 3 artifacts. Construct would become a 4th artifact, so 4/4 is still pretty powerful. And we could go for like a lava spur line potentially later on next turn, but oh, warping in the Riddler time. There's still 2 cards. We're only going to draw 1 here. So, but having that 4/5 out now is always solid here. So we're prioritizing the Riddler over being able to try to get the triggers off. That also might be indicating for Marco that there isn't enough spells to trigger the Core Steel Cutter a second time there. But looks like we got a Flage here. So is that going to be enough to be able to kind of help us out?
I highly doubt that. So I think the playing of Riddler over making a token with Saga, the major upside of it was that now you have a sizable attacker that can't be dealt with via prismatic ending.
Mm-hmm.
And one that will, like, it's also a better use of your mana because you're using 5 instead of 3. And overall, I think that's, playing Riddler definitely defensible in that spot. But looks like Marco is in a fairly tough position. He indeed has the Flage that you mentioned, but also because of the island in hand, it's harder, or in play rather, it's harder for him to escape the Flage because obviously the island can't tap for white mana to escape Flage. But I think right now most likely scenario is, I think, Daniele grabbing a construct token and fetching for probably Lava Spur Boots, as you mentioned. I think getting Tormod Script just as a precaution against any further flages. Because if Daniele doesn't win this game like on this turn or the next one, and it goes long instead, then having Tormod Script against Flage, which is the best way of coming back for Marco, also makes sense. But there's a chance that Marco is at 9 and Daniele can just have a lethal attack with 2 spells. Because, with 2 spells it's lethal. Provided you have mana to do everything, Lava Spur Boots goes on the construct, cast 2 more spells, bump the creatures, and at least 1 spell in hand. I saw the second Scory Steel Cutter. So now Daniele just has to mostly think about various pitch spells that Marco can have, mostly Solitude. And
Ooh, Unholy Heat here. And that'll just scoop it up to say, okay, well, then I really have nothing that can be in the way to get rid of all that power that's going to be coming across there. So
we're interrupting our gameplay to let you know about our new affiliate with NerdGear. Nerdgear.gg/NanMan will take you directly to the website, and as you can see, they've got a bunch of awesome gaming accessories from playmats, life counters with the life tracks, playmat holders, and more. So make sure you do some browsing on the site, find some goodies, and then use the code NGNanman for 5% off your entire order. But let's get back to our gameplay.
Metalcraft player currently leading this series 1-0 in it, and both the decks sitting 2-0 overall in the tournament so far here. So Jeskai Blink will be going on the play this time around, see what they can make work with the tools that they've got at their disposal. I mean, already we kind of see with the hands flicking through there is access to a Flage. Oh, both players going to be doing some mulligan in here down to 6. And doing
I would
Veil setup too. Interesting. Okay.
And I would assume that on average, mulliganing will favor Marco's side. Oh, dispute another card that I forgot to mention earlier. It's definitely stopping Emery and Tamio is quite important. As well as the later stages of the game can still get a Riddler or just use dispute against opposing counter magic. So definitely a card I would look for as well. Okay, just a couple of surveillance, as you mentioned, building towards that Flage.
All right, just kind of like you said, building towards the Flage here. So now our Metalcraft player Danielle is going to be setting up with or attempting to do a steel cutter here. We'll see if there's any ways to kind of react or respond to it.
There is a Strix's Serenade. And the nice part again about Serenade is that the drawback of making a 2/2 flyer is greatly diminished against a deck with like Felia and Teferi and Flage. Just so many ways of
not having to worry about tokens.
Incidentally, almost getting rid of that token. There is some tensions with like Ragavan. You play Ragavan on one, and then you create a blocker that can trade with Ragavan. But overall, such a powerful effect as countering a spell for 1 mana is, maybe not always, but often worth.
Often worth the
token,
2/2. Yeah, that makes total sense here.
Strix Serenade also really powerful of a card in Modern, in particular because you get to deal with things like Amulet Titan. You can work and like be like, yeah, have a 2/2 bird over whatever scary stuff you can have. Like a lot of the really powerful things you want to be able to counter is perfectly fine to be like, yeah, have a bird. I'd rather you have that over whatever scary thing that I can give you there. So
some of course powerful enchantments that we had talked about, but no, we're just going to drop down with the Flage, clear up that 1 token there, get a little bit of life off it, and then just kind of have that little bit of worry that's now building over there for Danielle of how many cards until Flage can escape. All right, setting ourselves up here, dropping down our artifacts. No way to currently utilize that Mox at the moment, but maybe there is an Emery that can come out there. We do see the Emery. What are we dumping from the hand or from the top in there? A Riddler, but only 1 artifact got put into there. Now, of course, the Steel Cutter that was countered earlier is now available that we could be able to kind of bring back next turn, assuming Emery stays around, but it's going to be a little bit harder with the ward ability here. Just ward 1, but still that little bit can make a big difference. So let's go and start cycling through some of our artifacts here.
Yeah. Yeah, nice little interaction of the boots with Emery, just equipping them and paying for the equip costs immediately with getting back the Mox.
Okay, so Galvanic Discharge, it is a trigger for ward, so we'll be paying off that ward and going to be trying to fry the Emery. That is the case. Building up our energy count. But yeah, like, good use, being able to use the boots right away. Boots will still be able to come into play later on, but now that Emery is gone, there's no more legendary creature. We saw the Mox on the screen there. The Mox Amber, a little bit different than the Mox Opal. That Mox Opal cares about Metalcraft, where Mox Amber, you have to have a legendary creature in order to utilize there.
Yeah. And I think there is another Emery hiding out in Daniele's hand. So
yeah, there it is. Deploying the Emery now. We'll see if there's going to be any reactions or response. There is kind of a little bit of.
So as this match is going to be really cool to be able to showcase again. Also, as we're getting into the shift into the RC circuit and Modern being the format of choice soon, as we get out of the standard season into the Modern season, like these decks will be showing up at the RCQs, like especially the Jeskai Blink, the Metalcraft ones, or different variations of artifact decks will as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if players are going to start utilizing more toolbox cards for their sideboard to deal with artifacts, things like Hercule's Recall or things like that. I've already started to show up a little bit more for players, but wow, look at Marco's like really look like they're going through it right now. I don't know. I like seeing this because it like this matchup is definitely a lot more nuanced in how the players are navigating it and how they have to kind of like respond to each other's and sort of like dodging and trying to land a threat or something powerful here. And Wrath of Skies
by the presence of Steel Cutter in the graveyard. So if you hold that Mox, maybe next turn you can play 2 spells and trigger Steel Cutter.
All right, so we are attempting to do the Wrath of Skies, which would have a huge impact because would clear out 3 of the artifacts that Daniela has, but we did get to be able to protect that. Say, nope, you are not. Let's counter that. Keep all of my board alive. So now again, it's like resources are starting to get low. So how can we piece together something here and sort of the pass on over, not much to do. But while resources seem like they're getting low for Marco as well, there's still that flage that's about to come out. There it is.
Exactly.
So escaping time. Let's do a little bit of helixing. Here you go. This is what I'll be getting rid of.
Yeah, probably will meet the Strix's Serenade. But now like not like in the Jeskai deck, or unlike the Jeskai deck, the Izzet deck actually don't have that many convenient ways of getting the bird of the board, and they actually usually have to expand a real card in order to deal with it. So yeah, Marcos is sitting pretty comfortably. 5 lands, there is Solitude in their hand to just answer the next threat, and I think another copy of Wrath of the Skies if the situation ever just goes out of hand.
I think it's going to easily be able to, take over here, especially as like we're limping along. It feels like, at least Danielle is, with this like, okay, I've tried multiple times to resolve my big impact cards. Like I tried to do this Corey Steel Cutter, wasn't able to get that to work. I tried to be able to utilize my Emery, and both of those were not able to work. So now it's trying to kind of see if we can find something here to set ourselves up. But the longer that goes on of trying to piece something together, the closer it keeps going to Marco being able to cast that Flage again from the graveyard. So this sort of like top deck mode does feel a lot more like it's favoring the Jeskai list, but both of the lists do have, Riddlers and things to help them draw cards and be able to kind of stay in this game at this point in time. But the bird pushes across, 2 little bit of damage flying on over. I like how both players are just kind of utilizes their Serenade here. And okay, let's get rid of the boots. So I like that. What do you think about utilizing that now and not like saving it for something else?
Oh yeah. So first of all, apologies for calling on Wrath of the Skies earlier. I think that was actually prismatic ending. But I do think that getting rid of boots makes a lot of sense because most ways for Daniele to come back to the game is to get a creature, equip it with boots, and get something going. So without the boots and without the threat of boots in Daniele's deck anymore, because they can't be. There's only one copy, can't be recast with Emery now because they are exiled, can't be grabbed with Saga. So it does like decrease the aggressive output, potential aggressive output from Daniele fairly significantly, I'd say.
Yeah, all right, land go. It looks like maybe there was an Unholy Heat in hand now, so kind of saving this for a potential like big threat like a Riddler or something like that can come out. But the bird is putting in work here. We check the mana count here up to 5 right now, so that is that kind of big mana turn where we could be starting to see some of those like Riddlers get dropped down. We also have the mana to be able to cast a Solitude if need be. So 5 mana is a scary mana count if you're playing against a blink deck here. And there's the next ending. Let's go and get rid of your Metalcraft in here. Say no more to the Mox Opal. But we are going to actually burn the bird here. Fire it off here instead of saving it for a potential other threat. But also, it's like at this point in time, the bird has done work. We need a way to kind of answer it, and we don't really have a good way to do that without having our own Riddler or something. But there's the Flage escape. Let's get rid of these next set of cards, and we're going to try to helix you here. Ooh, Metallic Rebuke coming out again. Of course, we do know that we've got that Mox Amber that can't be used, so we can improvise that to help pay for the cost. And Mystical Dispute. So counter your counter there.
Yeah, I think the last card in Daniele's hand is another Unholy Heat. So depending on whether Daniele has Delirium, it looks like
There it is.
they do, Flade just gets killed, and the bubble gets. Yeah, there are some good draws now. Quantum Riddler would be very good. I think that's Tamio and a basic mountain.
Mm.
So less than ideal, and definitely getting rid of that mm, of those boots early on now. Uh, now are that decision is now beneficial for Marco because Tamio can't attack on this very turn. It's
All
paying
right.
dividends a few turns after
Right,
deciding
yeah,
on the play.
exactly. Those decision making moments they're really kind of paying off here as we see it. But Danielle going hell bent, basically hoping that we can make something happen with this. But there's the solitude. Let's get rid of that. You'll gain no life because of that 0 power. And now we've got at least something threatening and scary to try to close out the game here for Marco, as the solitude can start swinging in for 3, gain some life off of here, and really kind of make something. But another unholy heat. So really being able to draw into those kind of responses to help keep things going here. But it's a tough spot that Danielle's limping their way along here, but still managing to find tools to kind of keep them into the game right now.
This is also a tough spot to be in, where you're like basically in top deck mode and all of your stuff is getting answered. We talk about this all the time on the channel of like resource trading, and when the game goes longer, the deck that has like better threats or more efficient threats have a better chance with their top deck later on when resources get lower and lower like this. Like we talk about all the time, especially when we see Tron on the channel, because it's like, oh, okay, you're not able to deal with them as much because it's like, all right, we'll trade resources, but now there's like an Ugin or things. There's no Ugins or anything in this matchup, but we do get to see things like Flage. We get to see things like Solitude from our Jeskai Blink player, where the Metalcraft deck is like, well, here's a 0 cost artifact. Like, here's a Mox. Is that gonna help? No. Oh, I don't have a Core Steel Cutter out. Oh, okay. It's so it's like tough spot to be in. Now Feli is here. And a Wrath of Skies for 1.
Let's get rid of everything that Daniela has. And now we've got at least a 2/2 that can put some pressure. And like you talked about, is building up again for that Flage to come back. So that's definitely like this big looming threat that, Danielle has to keep tracking, and has been able to find answers with Unholy Heats. But it's still just like, okay, how many cards do you have over there now? Okay, all right. So you're up to 4. Okay. Oh, that's
Okay,
pretty nice. Flame of Anor.
probably drawing 2. But now if Daniele plays Steel Cutter, Marco can spell it, putting 6 cards into the graveyard, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
it's just lethal. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
Daniele
scoop
just
it up
decides
there.
that it's enough for them anyways, which makes sense.
All right, so how do we feel like things worked out? Was it like very much impacted by sideboard stuff? Was there decision making moments that really kind of turned the tide here in game number 2 for these players?
I think there was definitely some sideboarding decision that impacted the situation a good deal. We've seen both Wrath of the Skies and Mystical Disputes brought from Marco's side,
Hmm.
as well as some extra reactive cards that were left in the deck. And yeah, I think for the most part it was just how the cards lined up, more
Yeah.
so than any like pivotal sideboarding decisions. Because I do think that both decks sideboard quite lightly in the matchup.
Hmm.
So yeah, it mostly came down to the execution and overall strategy. Like this one turn when Daniele could um, could play around the galvanic discharge with Emery, and yeah,
You're right with the Mox Opal moment.
yeah,
Being
exactly.
able to have the counter spell. Yeah, I agree there. So we're gonna see how things go. Like again, here's the list again for you to take a look at. Jeskai Blink. We've talked about how some of the sideboard cards, like the extra Wrath of Skies, being able to be useful and helpful here. So we'll see with game number 3 is like, are the tools going to be enough here? Is it going to be this sort of back and forth slugfest where the players are just kind of, trying to like see who can land the threat and be able to kind of take away and like kind of go with the game there? Like it was a lot of like, can the Emery stick? Can the Corey Steelcutter stick? So like Jeskai Blink kind of be in that reactionary stuff here to kind of basically put the stop sign up and say, nope, you cannot go this way. You're not going to be able to take this path. Find a new path here. But another little bit of a mulligan in for our Blink player. Surveil Lancer.
Now, I will remind people as we're getting into Game 3, these matches, of course, are from the 4Seasons Winter 2026 Modern event. You guys can see all of the VODs from all of the rounds, not just the ones that we're going to be showcasing on the channel, but all of them over on 4Seasons Twitch and YouTube channel. So make sure you guys are checking all that stuff out. They also have all the legacy stuff because this was a 2-day event. Of course, 1 day, well, it was a 3-day event. We only did commentary for the 2 days, but love the monk token choice. But yeah, this is very similar to game number 1 where you got to see kind of the dump of the hand and pushing for damage here. So we're gonna have to see how Marco gets to respond in these sort of situations. I don't know, like it was so cool to be able to see these decks in action because again, we keep talking about RCQ season coming up. It is going to be something that you'll have to be noticing and seeing a lot more of here with both of these decks, but we'll see. Mox Opal is online, is available. The Mox Amber is not currently, though. Also, Mox Opal, crazy expensive still. Like, has not gone down in price. Like, as soon as it got unbanned and all the players in Modern started picking it up, it's like, $150, $200 card. I don't know. I have mine in my cube, and that's it. I haven't gotten any more, but I've seen some really fancy, really crazy ones people have. So
Definitely this like kind of tough spot to be in. You see Marco kind of in the tank a little bit about what the next turn is going to look like, and will pitch that mountain down into the grave there. Looks like did draw fetch land off it to replace it there. So, do need lands to cast spells, but you don't want to just get all lands all the time here. So we, like you mentioned, that kind of taking the turn off to get rid of the steel cutter, but Monk is here, so we could easily be able to kind of push extra damage. But and also, Corey Steelcutter being in the graveyard doesn't necessarily seem that bad with the ability of Emery to be able to kind of bring it back later on. There's no current Emery on the battlefield, but is something that both of these players are thinking in the back of their head. So, Soul Guide Lantern.
Okay, so the card with a greenish hue that I thought was Sink into Stupor was actually Soul Guide Lantern. Apologies, but yeah, now Daniele can cast the last card in their hand, which is Quantum Riddler. Draw some extra cards. And yeah, Marco is getting pressured down quite quickly. Even though Daniele is out of cards, so if Marco now elects to Solitude the Riddler, Daniele will potentially only draw 1 card, but can crack Soul Guide Lantern with Solitude on the stack to draw 2 with Riddler. If they elect to do so, it looks like they don't. They're just valuing having that answer to Flage later on. Looks like
this is this tough moment here.
Just drew 2 cards out of habit, anyways.
So we get a judge call to come in here. A couple of times this happens in big tournaments like this. So
these kind of moments happen. That's why there is the judge at the events to kind of catch us through it. And so they're talking through it and working through it at this point in time to kind of figure out. Have you been in these types of moments where the judge has come over and kind of work through this sort of situation where they kind of have to shuffle the card away or things like that?
Oh, definitely. I've had multiple situations in which I was sitting on the either side of this situation, either be the person who committed the game rules violation of some sort, or be the opponent. And these days the policy is quite lenient. I think what's happening is that Marco now gets to choose which cards Daniele gets, which I think is a fair ruling. Um, and yeah, most likely Daniele will just get a game rules violation warning, and unless those stack up to
Right.
3,
There is that
yeah,
factor, right? And so it's three
yeah,
is the total number that can become like a game loss. Then is that
yeah.
at that point? Okay.
I also do think that because you can get warnings for different things, and I think they only upgrade if you get enough warnings of the same type. It used to be the
Mm.
case back then, and I think it's still the same. So you have game rules violation, you have like looking at extra cards, stuff like that. And yeah, they can progressively upgrade to a game loss, but that's very, very rare. And it's mostly just keeping people accountable for their actions, which is
Right.
good. Uh, I don't think
Especially
I've
at these
ever,
larger events.
yeah, I don't think I've ever had either myself or any of my friends getting game loss due to like warning stack.
Right. Yeah. I would say it doesn't tend to happen. So
Yeah.
with this, we got Wrathus guys wiping the board. We will pop our Soul Guide Lantern and at least draw a card here. But back to the rebuilding phase, and this is kind of what happened, like what we saw in game number 2, where both these players kind of like deployed a lot of stuff, and then we sort of just get into this like building mode again, where they're trying to piece together and get into something. And a Riddler here will let us draw one card, but there looks like another land and a Flage, so we're kind of setting up and building towards that line at the moment in time for at least Marco to kind of piece in and try to kind of set himself up for that moment here. But Danielle going to be just land go now at this moment in time. Tough spot. Like that's never where you want to be, especially like after this like moment where you kind of mess up something and then you're like, oh, dang it, I need to kind of lock back in for game number 3 there. So tough spot there. But we see Teferi getting resolved. So we will be able to kind of start allowing us to do some bouncing, start at least having that ability to kind of maybe potentially stop any of the counter spells that could be deployed there. And it also being able to kind of bounce potentially a uh Emery or something like that without having the ability to tap it right away is definitely a kind of like annoying, almost like, well, you took a turn to cast Emery, you couldn't use it, and now you're going to have to basically not use it again next turn there. So the Teferi being able to resolve is really good for Marco here.
Yeah. And one of the ways for Daniele to come back to the game uh, at this point is stringing together a few spells with Steel Cutter in play. And if Marco draws another copy of Wrath of the Skies, Marco can just just plus the Teferi and sit
Mm-hmm.
very comfortably. Just
We
shoot.
always forget about that. Is like Teferi also has that other mode of turning your sorceries into instances. Like I've done it with my blue-white control deck before, where it's been like, oh, I'll cast a Supreme Verdict on your turn, right, at instant speed now, or I'll cast this Wrath of Skies at instant speed and blow up your stuff. So like definitely some like scary potential here.
10, but that's not actually the real story here in this moment in time. It really is like that card advantage and the build up here. Like we talked about how Marco's building up toward this potential Flage coming. We're building up and we have a Riddler warped in there. So things are looking tough, but Unholy Heat, we're going to try to start burning things down a little bit. Double checks to confirm, is there Metalcraft or is there Delirium going right now? And there is not. So Felia will be able to get Flash in here, allow us a little bit more power to help us out.
Yeah, and Felia is another card that works nice with Teferi, but yeah,
And
it's
works
Felia and
nice with
Riddler.
that Riddler
It's too
too,
much.
but yeah, too much there. So we will be able to see the Jeskai Blink be able to take that there. So currently sitting in a 3-0 position there.
All right, so that was another one of our 4 Seasons tournament recap. A little bit of additional commentary, a little bit more behind the scenes discussion with these videos as we're kind of going through. Again, all of these can be found over on 4 Season Tournaments YouTube channel and Twitch channel, so you guys can check the link for all of that good stuff. But that's going to do it for us. Of course, every Monday and Thursday we will be showcasing more Modern, whether it's the 4 Season recap stuff as well as our own LGS to be able to check out. But make sure you guys are subscribed, following along for more Modern action. That's going to do it for us here today. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, y'all. I'll see you all next game.